You're listening to Wanderlust Diaries, the ultimate travel podcast for solo female travellers 40 and beyond who are ready to explore the world. Join me, Terry Reynolds, where we talk all things travel and why it's so important and what's stopping you from getting out there and exploring the world. We'll discuss the steps you can take now to fix it, empowering you to ignite your curiosity and set your heart free so that you have the confidence to travel wherever you want, whenever you want. Offering insights, tips, hacks, and remarkable women's stories along the way. So come on, grab your passport, pack your sense of adventure, and get ready to be inspired. Whether you're a first-time solo traveller or a seasoned globetrotter, Wanderlust Diaries is your community of like-minded souls, uplifting and supporting women over 40 who dare to explore. Welcome to today's episode of Wanderlust Diaries, and today I've got a fantastic guest, Laura, who actually has her own podcast too. So more of that later. So welcome, Laura. Thanks for joining me. Over to you. Tell us a bit about you and where you are in the world at the moment.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I'm Laura Lisensky, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, currently sitting in the back of my science classroom. I'm a high school biology teacher. And yeah, I have a podcast about traveling as well.
Fantastic. We can talk all things podcasts and travel podcasts as we go along. So I'm interested to know then, what inspired you? What started you? What kicked you off with traveling? How old were you and why did you do it? A lot of questions there, but we can take them in sequence.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, the big travel that began my lifelong love of travel was I joined the Peace Corps after college,
Yes.
which is, for those that don't know, it's an American volunteer program.
Mm-hmm.
You go live in a developing country for 2 years, and there's all kinds of different work you can do. So I was an environmental volunteer, and I lived in Benin in West Africa. I also spent a semester abroad in Kenya in college. So Africa was my first love. I need to get back there someday.
I was going to say, that was obviously your calling then, Africa. I love that. Oh my God. I mean, I've heard of the Peace Corps, but didn't really understand what it did. So what age were you?
I was straight out of college. I was 22.
Oh my gosh.
So I was quite young. Yeah. It was a big experience to live by myself in a place that was so different. It was really,
I bet.
It was really cool.
I need to know more. Tell me more. You've just gone top level. Fill me in with the details because I want to know a bit more about this. This sounds.
Oh my gosh, where to start? Yeah.
Brilliant.
So you get there.
You were there for 2 years, you said.
Mm-hmm. You have a 2-month training when you first get there.
Oh, right.
So at that point, I was in a little village with other volunteers, and we all had homestays, and we were taking classes on the language and the culture and getting ideas for projects we could do once we were sent out to our villages.
Yes.
And then lived there for 2 years trying to get work done. It was hard. I didn't get a lot done. I always think that the most important work I did was, cultural. I was an environmental volunteer, but it was really like getting to know people, and even just being an example of a woman living by herself and supporting herself, I think was a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the experience, isn't it? And especially at that age. I mean, I've got to be honest, Laura, at that age, I've been married, had a baby, and practically divorced.
Yeah. Well, that's another kind of experience.
So that's
absolutely. Life experience as well, for sure.
It's honestly now. I made up for that a lot later in life. But anyway, I just feel that I wasn't ready to have the travel experiences at that age, But yeah, so that's what I'd done by the time I was 22. My God, the contrast. I love it. Fab. So so you were there for 2 years, and what were you doing in that 2 years? What were you actually doing?
Yeah, so I was an environmental volunteer. Yeah, I always explain it as there's a lot of variety in the structure of your job when you're in the Peace Corps, and it's different in different countries, but we had English teachers that went to their job every day. That was the most structure. And then we had business volunteers who worked with local banks and Then we had health volunteers that worked at the health center. Environmental volunteers, we just had a business partner, which varied greatly. And mine was just the mayor, who we
Oh,
got a new mayor while I was there. And the second mayor wasn't as interested in working with me. So I didn't really have a partner as much. And it was just like, go to your village and assess your resources and see what people want to do and try and come up with some projects. So it was a real challenge, especially at 22, to to stay focused and get stuff done. But I did a few things.
yeah, fantastic. So that was your 2 years were up. And so what happened after that? What did that
Yeah, then
inspire you to do then, carrying on from that?
I moved to Portland after that.
Mm,
And at that point, I was doing some traveling, but then I also settled down and had some kids and didn't travel so much for a
mm,
while.
mm,
Um, and then I got divorced 5 years ago, and it was at that point that I said, I need to get back out there.
mm.
And I had always thought about starting a podcast as well. So my first big trip was in 2021, I think. It was right after I got a COVID vaccine and things were starting to open up a bit again. And I went to Costa Rica with a travel recorder, having no idea what I was doing. And I just recorded stuff as I went. It was also my first big solo trip. And
Yes.
then I came home with a bunch of audio files and made a podcast out of
Yeah.
it.
I love it. I love that. And we had a chat a few weeks ago, and I asked you about what recorder you use, and I bought the same one, so
Oh
I've
yeah,
got that
it's
now as
great.
well. So as much as I do this, I've got a handheld, which is great, isn't it? Because you can just turn it on wherever you are, and just
Mm-hmm.
record something. So I love that. And I'm guessing that 2 years away in Africa really kind of set you up for going off on your travels, and kind of fighting any fear that you might have had
Yeah, I
going off
mean,
on your
yes and
own.
no. Like it was a very different place for sure. So it
Mm.
gave me a love of like going somewhere that I don't understand and trying to figure
Yeah.
it out. But I didn't do any of it by myself. I mean, I lived by myself in my village, but whenever I traveled around, I was always with friends. And so
Mm-hmm.
it is very different to do it by yourself and know like whatever's going to
Yes.
happen today, it's because I did it,
Yes. Yeah, but
good or bad.
yes, if you hadn't have done it, you wouldn't have felt those things that you felt. Whether it was,
Yeah.
but you learn, don't you? Do you find that while you're doing this, and you learn lessons along the way, so therefore you don't do them again, and you just find your way, don't you? I just think it's a great way to do it when you go off solo. It's great learning curve, isn't it? And what about all the different cultures as well? I'm sure you all the travels you've done and gone through, many cultures as well, all the different types of
Yeah,
culture.
there's a
How
lot
you
of
have to
places I
immerse
still have
yourself.
to get, but yes.
Yeah, yeah. That in itself, I think about myself. My first port of call when I went traveling was India. I mean, you couldn't get anything less
Yeah,
westernized, could
that's a
you?
big one. I
No.
haven't been there yet. Yeah.
No, but it's just about that learning, how you learn and deal with somewhere totally different to what you're
Mm-hmm.
to what you're used to. And I've got to be honest, the first couple of weeks I was like, I've come to the wrong place. I don't know what's going on. I loved it. I absolutely loved it though, at the end of my time there. Did
Yeah.
you have any of those kind of feelings wherever you went?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest for me, I went to Morocco solo, and that's a very
Oh,
different place.
I haven't been there
Um,
yet. Oh yes,
yeah,
tell me more.
that
Yeah.
was it was strange for a couple of reasons. It was also after Morocco had just opened up. This was probably a year later, but
Oh yes.
every place was opening up at different times, right? So
Yeah.
I went to Morocco right after it had just opened up. And so there weren't many other tourists there, which on the one hand was really cool,
Mm.
but on the other hand was strange. I was in a number of just like big, cavernous, beautiful riads where I was the only guest.
Wow.
And it was eerie.
I
It was
bet.
really
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do remember having kind of a breakdown when I first got there, and
Did you? Yeah.
I went to Essaouira, which is a
Yes.
cute little town on the ocean. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful place, and I
I've
intentionally
heard a
went there
lot about
first.
Australia.
because it's
Yeah.
a touristy place, it's supposed to be easier than places like Fez or
Yeah.
Marrakesh, where I was going to go later. And I had trouble finding my hostel, and it was like people
Oh,
telling me like, don't stand here, this isn't a safe place for you to be. And so I was getting really worried
oh, yeah.
about safety, and everyone kept advising me like if you don't want people to talk to you, just look ahead and maybe wear your
Mm,
face mask and people won't talk to you, and giving me all this advice that made me
mm.
feel like it wasn't safe to talk to people, which was
I'm
not
sure.
true. I think
Mm,
there's just a lot of like, heckling isn't quite the right word, but a lot of
mm.
attention towards tourists
Yeah.
when you're there. And I think people were
Yeah.
just advising me on how to avoid that. But I took it
Yes.
at first as like safety tips,
Yeah.
which I don't think it was. So
Yeah.
I had a moment where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I ended out staying in the hostel that morning, and a local guy who worked at the hostel was going to make me breakfast. And so he was like, I'm going to go out to the market and get some breakfast. And I was like, can I go with you? And so we
Mm,
walked around town together, and I got
mm,
my bearings. And after that, I felt so
mm.
much better.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, it was a journey. I was
yes. It's just,
surprised at my reaction too, having been to Africa before and having done solo travel
yeah.
before, but all of a sudden it was
Yeah.
just kind of overload.
Yeah. And it's not surprising considering what we've just been through, with the pandemic. We were all closed off from each other, weren't we?
Yeah,
And then to suddenly go somewhere to a different culture where, like you said, it was a bit eerie because the travellers weren't there as well. Found to be a
right.
bit off-putting, but you found your way, didn't you? You didn't just sit there and think, that's it, I'm not going outside, I'm not doing anything.
Right. I did baby steps, one thing at a time. I did little
Yes,
circles. I was afraid of getting lost too. So I would do a little
yes,
circle and go back to my hostel, and then a bigger
yes,
circle and go back to my
yes.
hostel.
I love that tip. I love that tip, and for anybody listening, that's a great tip because that's what you need to do, isn't it? And I've done it myself where if I've gone somewhere new, whenever I've gone somewhere new, I like to walk around. But like you say,
Hmm.
go as far as you're comfortable with and come back and then go a bit further. And the other thing I do is take a bus, get on a bus, not necessarily, obviously I've not been to Morocco, but in certain areas where you can just get on a bus and travel around just to get used to your surroundings. So I love
Hmm.
that idea of doing that. So that gave you a little bit more confidence then to go out.
Yeah. 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 And then I got more. It was really just that first day that was super hard. And
Yes.
then I learned how things worked, and I learned that I didn't have to be afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. How long were you there in Morocco?
Like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the longer you were there, did it get busier? Were there more people coming in during that time, or was it still as quiet as what
No.
you got there?
Yeah, it was not a sudden change. It was stayed
No.
pretty quiet.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your favorite part of Morocco? Your
Oh
time there for
gosh.
that 2 weeks? What is there a favorite time, a favorite place that you
Right. I'd say
visited?
either Essaouira
Oh, yes.
or Fez. But I
Ah,
think I had really different experiences in Fez and Marrakesh, I think, because in Fez I decided to hire a guide to walk me around. And so I saw a lot of things that I
yes.
couldn't have found by myself. Um, so that was
Yes.
and I did a traditional hammam bath, a bathhouse, which was really, really interesting too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. And Marrakesh was cool and beautiful, but I didn't do anything like that. I just wandered around by myself, and so I think it was a bit more overwhelming because of that.
Yes. I've only heard these things, but I've heard Marrakesh can be really overwhelming. And if you felt that way without all the travelers there, lots of people there, then it must be quite overwhelming. And I love that
Right.
tip that you said just now about you've got yourself a guide, and I
Mhm.
think that's a brilliant idea, even if it's just for maybe a couple of days or the first few days, just so that you get familiar with where you are, familiar with the culture and the ways of people. Because you go to the markets, the souks and all that, then you have to have a specific way about you, I think,
Yeah.
to handle those environments, I would say, because just from speaking from being in India, I think that
Yeah.
it's pretty similar. So I love that tip, and anybody who's listening, take that on board. That's a fantastic thing to do, I think.
Yeah. Like, especially on day one, just get your bearings,
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
more confident to explore on your own.
Yeah, no, because it can be that thing of, you won't go out the first day, I'll go out the second. The second day comes along and still not quite sure. So
Hmm.
yes, everybody, get yourself a guide. So much. And they're so useful as well. They pass on so many tips as well, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. That was great.
Which is really useful. Okay, so we've done Morocco. Any big learnings from Morocco?
One thing I did learn was when you're traveling on a holiday, do your research about what is available. I found myself, it was difficult to get
Yeah.
where I was going, but I got there. But once I got there, I had no food. Everything was closed. I was there on Eid. And
Oh,
so,
right. Oh, no.
yeah, so that was challenging. So if you're going to be there on a holiday, figure out what that means. Um,
Yes,
yeah.
definitely. And that's a big thing, I think, is around the research. Make
Hmm.
sure you research. As soon as you know where you're going, research it, and research it a little bit more, because there will always be a little something that you might have missed the first time around. So research plays a big part of this, doesn't it? So that you know exactly where you're going, what you're doing, what it's all about. It doesn't mean you have to have everything planned to the nth degree, but just
Yeah,
know the culture.
that's always a hard one for me, is figuring out how much to research, because I do also want to explore and be surprised and
Yes,
feel spontaneous when I travel. So I tend to
yes,
just kind of make a menu for myself. These are all the things I might do in this city, and then I get there and I decide.
yes. And a bit of a bucket list for each place, and then just tick them off
Hmm.
as you do them or not, whichever happens. And we always get um sidetracked as well, don't we? There's always, like, we know about these things, and then all of a sudden somebody said, oh, have you seen this though, and have you been there? There's
Right.
always
You
something
find
else that's thrown into the
opportunities.
mix.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you're never going to be 100% of what you're going to do, because I know I did. There were countries I was going to see that I didn't. That I bypassed. There were countries that I wasn't going to see that I went to. So you get all that along the way as well, and just be kind of flexible and spontaneous.
Yeah. Yeah. The best things happen when you meet people and end up doing something different, either with other travelers
Yeah,
or with locals. Yeah. Being able to
yeah, no,
abandon those plans you made, I think, is a great skill.
yes, absolutely. And for those who are listening who have never done this before, because I remember thinking this myself, that I was told that, you're going to do this, but you'll end up going there and this plan won't happen and you'll do that instead. And I thought, never in a million years. This is what I'm going to do. I've never done this before. I'm going to follow everything to the letter because, I'm so, oh my gosh, tunnel vision. But yeah, once you're there and once you're in it and once you've got a little bit of confidence because something's gone right, because those first things that go right
Yeah.
gives you that confidence, and you start enjoying yourself. You literally will. And for those listening who think that you won't, you literally will go off and do something that's not on your list because you want to do it that way. And I think that's the best way to embrace it, is, just be open, flexible with
Hmm.
any plans that you've got.
Absolutely.
And don't just think of the A to Z, you know. This is A to Z. This is what I'm going to do. Do you know what I did when I first started traveling? I had like a journal. It was an exercise book, it was, but I used it as a journal. And for the first few weeks, I was writing down the countdown. So I had 52 weeks to go. I'd write
Hmm.
52, then I'd write 53, 52, then 51, then 50. And I got down because I just felt a bit terrified of it all. And I think I'd forgotten, obviously I forgot, to start to keep writing that because I was enjoying myself. I was out of it. I wasn't worried.
Hmm.
And when I look back into my note, I think I got as far as like week 49.
And then I stopped counting. So it was only those first 3 weeks that I was counting down, thinking, I've only got 51 weeks to go. I've only got 50 weeks to go. I've only got 49 weeks to go.
Oh my
Which is
gosh.
crazy. When I think about it now, but it did only last for those first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because you do, you just start enjoying it. And the scariness of it all, the bigness of it all.
Yeah.
Like, all quietens down your mind, quietens down quite a lot with it. Anyway, that's my story. Right. So after Morocco, then what happened after that?
Oh my gosh.
What was
I
your
don't
next
know.
step?
I now just am trying to travel whenever I can during all my breaks
Yeah.
for school.
Yes.
I've got my kids are 10 and 12, so some of the trips are
Yeah.
with them, some are with friends, some are solo.
Yes.
It all
And
just
so
depends. But I have to
what's the
scratch
difference?
that solo itch from time to time still.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely get you on that. You just do. It's just a different feeling, isn't it, when you're on your own?
Yeah.
It just really is. It's just so liberating. I love it. So the difference then between solo traveling and then doing it with your kids.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a
What's the
big
difference
difference.
planning wise? Yes, well, tell us more about that. What's the difference then planning wise with that? I bet it's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I try to, take into account what they like to do.
Yes, yes.
So I'm planning a trip to Japan with them this summer. And
Are you?
I've already
Wow.
found a poop museum that we for sure
Yeah.
have to go to.
Love the sound of that. We'll have to have a part 2, Laura. You have to come back
Right.
and tell us about.
Let you know how that went.
Yeah.
But more than
Fantastic.
anything, it's just the speed at which I go with my kids. I have
Yeah.
to remember we got to make sure we get meals in a timely manner. We
Oh
have to
yeah.
have a break every day or everybody's going to lose it. So
Yeah.
building in that rest time. Whereas when I'm by myself, I can rest when I feel
I
tired.
know.
But if I
As and
don't
when.
stop and
Yeah.
rest with them, then everything starts
Yeah.
going poorly.
No, it's
Yeah.
factoring in, isn't it? You have to factor those things in. And what do they think about traveling and going to different places? And are they happy when you go off solo on your own? Are they happy about that as well?
They're
Or
not
are they
happy,
like,
but they don't mind. They're used to it. Yeah.
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 So are there favorite places that they've been that they would like to go? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing that they want to go to Japan. They're quite looking
Yeah,
forward to that, I can imagine.
that's what they were pushing for, and I was thinking we wouldn't have enough time. It's
Yeah.
so far away,
Yes. Yeah.
but the flights to Japan, because I think Tokyo is kind of a hub, the flights to Japan
Mm.
weren't actually too bad time-wise. So that's what made me
Oh,
decide, okay, we can do it. So I was telling
yeah.
them no to Japan, and I just told them yes. So they're very excited about that. They also love
Yeah.
sushi, so that's going to be good.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
yeah, it's going to be
I think
amazing.
Yeah, when I plan travel with kids, I also think a lot about food. We also went to Italy because
Yeah.
that was a really good location for them to eat the
Lovely.
food.
Where did you go in
We
Italy?
did Rome, Florence, and Venice,
Oh, wonderful.
kind of the
Oh,
big
yes.
three for our first time there.
Yeah, no, and they loved it, I'm guessing. They really
Yeah, it
liked
was
it, did
great.
they, as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Have they got a favourite place that they've been to out of the countries that they've travelled with you? Is there a favourite place they go, oh,
That
we want to
might
go back
be
there?
it. Yeah, we just had a horrible trip to the Grand Canyon this last spring break.
Oh,
My
no.
daughter sprained her ankle about 10 feet down the trail and then
Oh,
proceeded to get super sick and was throwing up all night.
oh, no.
I spent
Oh,
3 nights at the Grand Canyon and never saw the Grand Canyon.
oh, oh, no.
I didn't even see
Oh,
it.
God.
Yeah,
Oh,
but we rented
yeah.
an RV. We flew to Vegas and rented an RV and drove
Oh, I
there. And that
see.
part was really fun.
Yes. But it
But
was going
yeah.
down the canyon that didn't, I know. I remember I got to the canyon, it was just about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to do a helicopter flyover, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a number to ring. This is back in the day before, we didn't have mobile phones, didn't have the internet then. And so I rang the number and they just closed. I
Oh,
was gutted. I missed them by about 5 minutes. So that was a shame. But I stopped off in Flagstaff and stayed
nice.
in a hostel in Flagstaff, and I was back and forth to Vegas. I got to Vegas, went to Canyon, went back to Vegas, and went to New Orleans and different places. But
Wow.
yeah, so I didn't actually climb down the canyon though. So at least you got so far down. Bless you.
Right. About 20
I
feet.
mean, oh gosh. Oh, so that was it
Yeah.
then for all of you, really, wasn't it? So that you
Yeah.
won't be revisiting that very soon, I suppose.
I mean, I'd love to, but there's so many places in the world. I have trouble going the same place twice.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I'm absolutely with
Yeah.
you on that. It's great if that's what you like to do. That's great. But I always like to think if I'm going somewhere, I want to go somewhere different and
Yeah.
experience something different.
Mm-hmm.
So Japan's next for you then. Is that will that be in the school holidays? Is that?
Yeah, that'll be over the summer.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
have exactly
And
8 weeks left of school. Not that I'm counting.
Not that you oh God. Is it only 8 weeks? So do they break up in about the middle of July over there as well? Is that
Middle
about
of
the same
June.
time? Is that 8 weeks away? No, that's June, isn't it? Yeah. They break up over here middle of July till
Okay.
till September. And I'm off with my grandson. I'm taking him away just for a weekend down to a county called Devon here, which is on the coast. So I'm taking him in a caravan, which he's really excited about. And that's about 3 weeks. That's in about 3 weeks' time.
Nice.
Fantastic. So I suppose all the plans are now is about getting you to Japan. And
Yeah,
you'll
that's what I'm
obviously,
thinking about right now. Yeah.
yeah, and you'll take your recorder with you. Will you record while you're there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The kids are used to being in the podcast.
yeah. Will they?
There's a great part in one of the Italy podcasts when my kid takes the recorder and just walks away and says, "I'm the host of this now. Hi." And just takes over. Some days they're like, "Mom, stop making us talk about this food. Stop describing our food.
What? Yeah.
I want to eat it now." So they do get tired of it, but other times they take over
It's
the
all too
podcast. So
much.
yeah.
Oh, I love it though, and I love that they just humour you as well along the way, which is
Yeah.
great. You know, they're not just moaning at you the whole time; they're
Yeah.
humouring you as well.
Only sometimes. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be good though if they did it role reversal and they interviewed you?
Yeah.
They were the interviewer.
That would be good. We'll have to have a segment.
Yeah, I want to listen to that one. Well, it's been great chatting about all your travels. I've really enjoyed it. And of course, you know, with your school as well. Is it, I suppose with the work that you do, the only time you can get away is in the summer, in the school holidays, not so much the summer,
Right.
but during the school holidays. And of course, you're off at the same time as the kids, which works out really well.
Yeah, that is convenient. Yep.
Yeah. Great. No, it's been fantastic having the chat over what you're doing. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind a part 2, even if, you know, it doesn't have to be really long, 10, 15 minutes, but I'd love to hear about Japan. And obviously we will listen out for your own podcast around.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's called
around
Travel Along
that.
with Laura.
Yes. And what I'll do is, if you wouldn't mind, send me over your links to your podcast, and then I'll put them in the show notes so that anybody then who wants to get onto your show, that's all they have to do is click on the link and they'll be there. So yeah, have a listen to Laura's. I've been listening to Laura's for a couple of weeks now. Your podcast, I've been going on and having a little listen. Yours is slightly different to this. It's more of an audio, isn't it, than a visual.
Yeah, it's definitely different from other travel podcasts in that I try to really, well, it's called Travel Along for a reason, right? I try to bring people with me and have the sounds of the places while I'm there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Because it's really fresh, you know, and it's just, it always seems quite spontaneous, you know, as if you're just out for a walk. I'm just out doing this and now we're recording. So yes, everybody, you must go over and have a listen to Laura's podcast. So thank you very much. And as I say, I'll put everything in the show notes. And yeah, thanks, Laura. And have a great time in Japan. Looking forward to hearing all about that.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
You're more than welcome. Bye.
Bye. Right.
So I'm just trying to
And that concludes this episode of Wanderlust Diaries, celebrating the fearless spirit of solo female travellers who are 40 and beyond. I hope you found inspiration, valuable insights, and a renewed sense of wanderlust. Thank you to all our incredible listeners who have joined us on this exciting journey. Remember, age should never stop your quest for adventure, because the world is waiting for you to explore its wonders. And don't forget to join our community on social media to connect with fellow travellers, and subscribe and review us on your favourite podcast platform. All links are in the show notes. Keep dreaming, keep exploring, and stay fearless. Until next time, this is Terry Reynolds signing off from Wanderlust Diaries. Psst, don't keep me a secret. Please tell your friends and fellow travellers.